Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Dr. Foley, roll call, please. Moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 4-0. Next up is our superintendent's report and some of our favorites going on with our awards and recognitions tonight.
President Kaler, members of the board, we're going to start tonight with one of our favorite things, which is honoring our amazing students, employees, and community members. Tonight we have the amazing Centennial team in the house, and we're going to start our celebrations, Points of Pride, COVID style, social distance, physical distance style, so it looks a little different than we've historically done. So we're going to start tonight by inviting the amazing administrator, Mrs. Rachel Broadley, over. And Rachel will be coming up here, and she's going to call one group at a one recognition person at a time, and we'll celebrate and honor, and we will take a picture. The board will stay on their place because we want to be able to social distance and see their faces.
All right, perfect. So, good evening, President Kaler, Governing Board. I'm very honored to announce our Points of Pride for 2020-2021, and I'm going to invite my better half to come up here with me as well, Mr. V, so he can help me hand out these awards. And we're just going to start with Miss Bree Unger. So, Bree, if you want to come on up. Bree is our volunteer. And so now you get to hang up here for a minute while we talk about you. So as everybody knows, volunteering has been a bit limited as of now, but Bree was one of the first parents to step up and volunteer her assistance. Bree runs our teacher store and has been really creative this year with the teacher store program and how she can support our teachers. She's ensured the store is still up and running and that our teachers and students aren't going without. As far as parent volunteers go, Bree is a staple here at Centennial, and we are so grateful for her dedication and involvement. So thank you, Bree. All right, up next we have Miss Kelsey. Oh my goodness, I'm like mixing your names together. Cassie Halverson, our teacher. So Cassie teaches 5th grade math and science. Cassie has continued to impress us this year as the year progresses. She has blossomed into an amazing leader among her peers as well as for the students. Cassie does an exceptional job. Oh, sorry. Well, I just lost my notes. So little. I'm trying to use my eyes. Are just like squinting. All right. Cassie does an exceptional job serving as our Stuco advisor and works diligently to spread school spirit in a very thoughtful and detailed way. She often takes the lead on special projects and has gotten good at knowing when to say when or no, which is very challenging for somebody who's as involved as she is. She's definitely a yes, ma'am type of person, and this year she's done an exceptional job of maintaining that balance. Cassie is also a very dedicated teacher who takes pride in connecting with students and parents as well as making learning relevant and engaging. So congratulations, Cassie. All right, up next is Miss Aubrey Hauer, our student that we would like to recognize, so come on up. All right, so Aubrey is in 6th grade at Centennial and has been here since she started kindergarten. Aubrey exemplifies the true definition of grit. We've seen Aubrey grow as a student since she was in kindergarten, and we are blown away at how much she has grown. Aubrey is known amongst the Centennial staff for her dedication to her studies as well as her determination. She pushes herself and is here to learn. Socializing takes a backseat to academics, which isn't always seen, is not very common in 6th grade girls. So she is here to learn, she's here to grow as an academic leader, and we're just so proud of her and all that she's accomplished. All right, and last but not least, Miss Raina Battles, our support staff. Miss Raina currently serves as a resource aide for us. So Miss Raina has really impressed us this year. She is not only becoming stronger in her day-to-day responsibilities, but she is also one of the first people to step in when there is need. Raina is quick to take additional responsibilities even when she isn't asked to do so. Her initiative and positive attitude are contagious, and we've been amazed at her growth as a professional. So congratulations. So thank you guys very much. Thank you for allowing me to present and show recognition for the people that are on our campus doing amazing things. And Centennial family, if you guys want to head outside to take some pictures, this would be the time now.
Thank you all for coming tonight and supporting our Points of Pride winners.
President Kaler, members of the board, I will continue with the superintendent's report tonight, and I would like to start off following that beautiful celebration of our amazing student, staff, and community with just a little summary of a report and communication that was sent to our employees and to our community and is currently available on our website. HUSD leadership is very aware and concerned that the Maricopa and the Arizona Department of Health Services metrics continue to show that positive COVID cases continue to rise in this state and the rates are trending in the wrong direction within our own community. We are closely monitoring our HUSD COVID-19 dashboard very carefully. This is updated Monday through Friday to reflect in real time all confirmed positive cases on each campus so that we know what has been confirmed each day, confirmed and resolved each day. HUSD is being diligent to follow every case with fidelity and track and account for each unique situation and is following all of our communication protocols. We are working daily with the Maricopa County and/or Arizona Health Department of Public officials, and it is important to know and remind everyone that these entities have the authority to direct schools to quarantine and/or to close, and have done so when necessary. When we look at the HUSD COVID-19 dashboard, our positive cases on campus are not rising like what is happening on the state dashboards, and we believe that this is due to a combination of several factors. We are seeing little evidence of person-to-person spread on school campus, and we attribute that to the mitigation strategies that we have implemented on our campuses. These mitigation strategies do work, and we need to stay vigilant with them. We have seen that increased sanitation, as well as wearing a face covering, are effective ways to minimize the spread. When we are examining our own positive HUSD cases, we are finding that almost all of these situations are attributed to infected individuals' involvement in off-campus activities such as parties, sleepovers, or attendance to events where preventative measures were not followed. We also have had situations where individuals are coming to school when they're not feeling well, or students, or work when they're not feeling well, or students who have come to school when they are waiting for COVID-19 test results. In our communication to our community and to our employees, we stressed and indicated that if we have a site in which the percentage of positivity were to continue to rise, that we would consider several options, including return to remote learning at that site if it was necessary. But we also wanted to stress to our community that safety is our top priority, and that we want to be able to keep our schools open. However, we really need help to do this. As we enter into the holiday season, we are asking people to please help us stay vigilant by staying home if they are experiencing any COVID-19 symptoms, if they are awaiting COVID-19 test results, or if they have received a positive COVID-19 test. We also want to stress that it is important to remember that not all the information that is out there on social media is accurate. We have investigated rumors, and there is substantial misinformation on Facebook and other social media outlets. Please know that every time you hear of a case, that not every case that you hear about is a confirmed case. We have had students who have reported to their teachers that they are positive in order to be sent home, when in fact they are not positive nor a confirmed case on campus. Our district administration would also like to stress that if you have a concern about a specific situation, the best way to get accurate information is to directly contact your student's school administration or district administrator so that we can help assist you in getting specific answers to your questions or concerns. Please know that we will diligently follow up on all situations that are brought to our attention. I also want to assure at this time our Higley community and our employees that we are concerned, that we care about each and every one of you, that we are working very hard to come up with to help us get you thoughtful answers and address all of your questions and concerns. While our current plan already dictates the need to return to remote learning should active cases significantly rise on a particular campus, we also recognize that with the recent substantial increases in community spread, there is a need for specific protocols to be formally approved and to be communicated should we need to move a campus to remote learning. Thus, we want to share that we will be adding a special governing board meeting on December 2nd at 5 o'clock in the evening for district administration to present our recommendation for site-by-site guidance when return to remote learning is, or if and when is needed. So with that little summary of that communication and update, I'd like to talk about our upcoming events. If you could pull it up. Okay, so this Friday, we're pretty excited that we are having a superintendent's visit at Williamsfield High School. This week, we learned that unfortunately, Vice Mayor Kaprowski is unable to attend. However, Mayor Anderson is still planning to join us. For those who can attend, we're very excited. Mr. Tannenbaum is pretty ready with this agenda to show and share and highlight the fabulous things we have happening at Williamsfield. Obviously, we're going into Thanksgiving holiday, and we wish all of our community happy holiday with their families. Again, as we just shared, we have our special board meeting on the 2nd, and then we have another board meeting on the 9th. So those are our upcoming events, and I just want to highlight a few updates about athletics as well. So one of the things that we'll also share is that fall sports are finishing the season. In fact, the last regular football games are this Friday. Again, potential playoffs are to be determined. We want you to know that at this moment, winter sports have been postponed. There is a meeting tomorrow, so obviously we will have more information tomorrow and updates at that point. Same thing with middle school. They're finishing their season, and obviously we'll follow all guidelines and updates. Also, the meeting is tomorrow. So I think we're nearing the end of that, and fall is postponed winter is postponed at this time. So that concludes superintendent update.
Thank you so much for that communication. And we're going to go on to board comments now. And I will open up the floor to my board for comments. Mrs. Wilson.
I was able to attend the Veterans Day celebration a few weeks back, and Mrs. Martins was there. And I just want to thank our junior ROTC for their awesome raising of the colors and their just performance that night. It was a very nice celebration. I know the venue was moved from years past. This was the first time I got to attend it, but it was very nice. So thank you to the town of Gilbert.
Thank you. Mr. Glover.
Thank you, President Kaler. I just have a few comments, maybe more for people who are watching and our staff. So this may take a couple minutes, but okay, all right, anyway, most of us hoped we would be in a better place by Thanksgiving than we are, and there is a lot of red on the maps that we use to guide us. The infection rates at our school, as Dr. Foley said, have remained low, and the people in our schools are doing a good job, and that is a tribute to the staff, the front office workers, the attendance clerks, nurses, custodians, who have been working, basically doing 2 jobs with all the new cleaning protocols for low pay, and our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers, our teachers, our paras, our admins. So I wanted to thank them all for that, and then I wanted to take a few minutes and address just a few things that I hope will all make us a little bit better and stronger and safer. I quit Facebook a few months ago. I don't think you can govern on Facebook. It seems like these days all it's good for, to me, was for screaming and creating an us versus them mentality, when I think this situation is screaming for a we mentality. We didn't win things like World War II because half of us were rooting for the Germans and the Japanese. There's also a really unhealthy mistrust of our government, which is really dangerous to democracy. And a lot of the people that I know that are in government are honest servants who do care about doing a good job, and we have a lot of those here in Higley. If you think the numbers on our dashboards aren't accurate, instead of riffing about it to the internet, as Dr. Foley said, as an adult and as a resident of this community, you got to try and follow the chain of command. If you hear a kid saying that they have COVID and they came to school anyway, please let the school know that they do, and they will follow up. We have to get this right. We have to. And some kids are saying that they have COVID when they're just voluntarily quarantining. Some are ordered to quarantine because they were in close contact with a positive case for like 10 minutes or more, but they may not have COVID. But if something's not working in our processes, like there was an instance where some teachers were not receiving notifications of positive cases in their class, we will track it down and fix it, but you have to make people aware. That did happen, it was fixed, we're better, we're more informed as a result. So don't wait, speak up appropriately. And I was reminded as I was putting together some remarks of a situation in one of my first years of teaching. I taught at a new American-style K-7 school in Warsaw, Poland, not too long after the fall of the Iron Curtain. And some of our students don't even know what the Iron Curtain was. But part of the way into the year, we got a new kid in 6th grade named Dominic, and he was from Indonesia, and all the teachers tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't talk. He just gave us this really blank look, so we kind of just all assumed he didn't speak English or Polish. So because we weren't getting any responses and obviously wasn't doing any schoolwork, we called his grandma, who worked at the embassy, and asked her to come in and talk. We wanted to try to find out where he was academically. And we explained that we were probably going to have to do something different to catch him up on his English, as he was behind his fellow students. And she looked at him, and she looked at all of us, and she said, "I don't know what you mean. He speaks English fluently." And Dominic shrugged his shoulders, smiled very uncomfortably, and sunk way down in his chair. He played all of us perfectly by pretending not to understand anything, and he got away with not doing any work for an entire week. And so I realized with some grudging admiration that that kid was an evil genius. But the point of the story is that kids aren't always straightforward. Sometimes they bend the truth. Sometimes they don't always tell the full truth. And that's why we classify kids versus adults. Since the beginning, Higley has had reports of kids bragging that they or someone else in their family has COVID. We do call home. We get in contact with the county. We find out that maybe, in fact, the kid really doesn't have COVID. Maybe they wanted a few days off. Maybe they wanted some street cred. Maybe someone in their family has COVID and they just have to quarantine. Maybe they had a symptom and they thought they had it, but after telling everyone and getting tested, maybe they didn't have COVID. So as adults, if you're hearing these tales, you have to let the school know so that we can work together and keep each other safe so that someday we can stop wearing these masks and interact and enjoy one another again like we used to. Don't just blast it out there on social media. Spread facts and not gossip. Just because you believe something doesn't make it true. We have to all be part of the solution. And we're not talking about like tweeting at the person who runs the social media account at Wendy's because your drive-through order got messed up. We are talking about the health and well-being of our loved ones. And we would all prefer to keep working and learning in person, but we have to work together to make that happen. And there's things that we as a society have to acknowledge we're not going to be able to do this year. Most of us will remember down the road our very lonely COVID birthday celebrations. We have to learn, we could take this moment to learn to be resilient and deal with setbacks and get up afterwards. And kids can learn really valuable lessons from not getting what they want all the time. We could all learn from that. And the same thing for teachers who are saying that they don't have hand wipes or hand sanitizer. We have loads of all of this stuff. I've seen the bills. We have stockpiles. If you don't have what you need, don't tell your pals on Facebook. Talk to your principal or your building manager. And if they don't get you what you want or what you need, follow the chain of command up the ladder till you do. There's plenty of people in this room and in Higley who do care. I'm one of them. These folks are all one of them. And the same thing if cleaning protocols aren't being followed in your building. Be an adult. We need you, and we are all on the same team here. And a simple reminder for everyone, when you're posting online, whether you're a kid or an adult, ask yourself these 3 questions, and the world will immediately be a better place. Is it kind? Is it helpful? And is it demonstrably true? And I hope that our community members are seeing the increasing numbers of red out there and understand that in order for safe in-person learning to continue, we are all going to have to do our part. And I will reiterate all the things that we can do. Mask up. Don't wear that mask underneath your chin so that your nose and mouth are exposed. You look stupid, and it's not doing anybody any good. Wash your hands. Avoid large gatherings. Get tested regularly, even if you're not feeling sick. It's generally free, easy, and fast. Stay home if you're experiencing symptoms and get tested. And if you get tested because you're feeling sick, stay home until you get your results, please. You do that, we can begin to rebuild. You don't do that, and we will have to make some drastic changes, and not just in Higley, throughout the whole state and the nation, to how we're living right now. If we don't, the county can, will, and has shut down schools when they feel the numbers and spread are too high. They just did it to a charter school nearby, and yeah, you can look that up for yourself. Higley didn't develop hybrid plans, which I thought would have been helpful as we transitioned, but that moment has passed. So we would have to decide if it would even be worth it to create a hybrid plan at this point, and if it would even still have any kind of effect other than to delay what might be inevitable. Spacing in a hybrid would help, but if you'd still have all the kids who can't stay home, and you've got to find a place for them along with all these half-full classrooms. And it would just be a lot of effort to try to make that happen. And we just don't know if that would make anyone happy. I guess we have time between now and December 2nd to try to piece that together. But those kids who can't stay home but were due to be in class, they'd be on campus 5 days a week. And so they'd have to be spaced out. Somebody would have to monitor them. They're still going to eat lunch. So that would be a real challenge. And I'm not sure that we want to even really go down that road. And look, if you told our teachers that they have to teach underwater, they will find a way. okay? But you have to convince them that their efforts would be worthwhile and impactful, and that's kind of where I feel like we are with hybrid. So really, if you're looking for numbers or percentages, and my email inbox says that you are at this point, any numbers I think would have to be based upon when students would have to be sent back to remote learning. And the plan when this started was to rely upon the county to direct that, but other districts, as we've seen, are making their own plans. So do we wait for the county, which at times has been a little bit slower than we would like, or do we make our own? And I would rather defer to public health experts, but I just wanted to let it be known that I am willing to do the work to make a decision if my colleagues see fit to do that. So December 2nd is a big meeting. And then I'm almost done. I addressed a concern to a community member who shared that some people in our community were feeling like we're only staying in school because the school gets money when kids are here. First of all, we are a public good and we are not for profit, so that notion is relatively absurd in my mind. But furthermore, the governor, and I applaud him for doing this, he promised that he will use relief and other money to fund schools at least at 98% of what we got last year, for the sole purpose, really, to avoid any situations where schools are forcing kids to attend for fear of lost funding. So nobody is making your kids come to school at the risk of their health solely for the dollars that are attached to them. It is a repugnant notion, and please correct anyone you run into who is saying that or spreading that. Again, it is not us versus them. It should be we, and surely we can do better. And lastly, to my fellow board members and future board members, I hope that when HUSD starts to get some money from Proposition 208, that our teachers understand that our classified staff deserve as much as we can possibly afford to give them for helping us through this, and I hope that you guys advocate for that when the time comes.
You're always a tough act to follow, Mr. Glover, and we will miss you. Mrs. Reese, did you have anything? I, too, wanted to just echo thank you to everybody. I want our staff and our teachers and everybody to know that we do care. We are taught, we eat, sleep, drink this every single day. All the administrators here are working long hours and doing everything they possibly can. So, and I've said this before, and I'll keep saying, I'll thank everybody except for Doug Ducey. He did us no favors today, and he continues to do us no favors. So that's kind of been my motto, and I do appreciate his funding for attendance, but today was very disappointing in my opinion. So with that said, we are going to go on to request to speak, and I have, I'm going to say this correctly, I hope, Giuliano Dudabo. Did I do it? Right. Okay. Dudabo. Okay, well, come on up to this podium here, and I'm going to read something real quick before you do, okay? We value input from our constituents. This time has been set aside for anyone from the audience who wishes to address the board. Please remember, this is not an appropriate venue to evaluate, discuss, or criticize district personnel. Policy KEB provides a process for complaints about personnel. Speakers should be aware that false statements about individuals may result in civil liability. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Thank you.
All right, it's very nice to meet you guys. It's nice to see you in person instead of on my computer, so it's very cool. So, President Kaler, members of the board, before I begin, this letter I'm reading was written one day after the board meeting on August 26th, in which I used this as my base argument for a petition in which I asked that we not open our school yet. The petition received 515 signatures. I sent this petition via email to each one of you as well. The only board member to reply and acknowledge that they received this was Mr. Glover, and I very much thank you for your direct communication with the Higley community, and I will truly miss you once your term is up. To the rest of the board, I hope you can listen today. Due to time constraints, I will be reading an abbreviated version of my paper today. My name is Giuliano Dudabo, and I am a senior at Higley High School and an avid supporter of our community's health and safety. It is with a heavy heart that I must inform you how the decision to return to live instruction was impulsive and wrong. Let me preface by saying that I absolutely love this community and everybody that I've met in it. I would not be the man I am today without the education and social interactions I've received in the Higley community. I too long to have a physical senior year, but I am not selfish enough to jeopardize the health of others to attain that. With that being said, the decision made to open up was rushed, disastrous, and I believe it should be reverted. The problem lies in the numbers. According to the Maricopa County dashboard as of today, any schools within the zip code 85295 should be prepared for virtual with online support, and the overall risk is substantial, meaning that we are in the red. I hope you follow the dashboard's advice as closely as you did on August 26th and make the decision to go virtual before risking more lives. As of now, I've had one teacher who has contracted COVID-19 and at least 3 positive COVID-19 cases that I know of, all in one single class. With the teachers only given a few days to prepare for in-person instruction, there should be no problem in giving them a few days to prepare for online. Some think we should wait for Thanksgiving or even winter break to close. The lives of many and the Maricopa County dashboard say otherwise. I understand you have a meeting on December 2nd. 2 weeks ago, Arizona's COVID cases went from 1,012 in a day to 4,105 as of today. There is no time to wait for 2 weeks. As I write this, New York has decided to close its schools again after the state had a 3% positivity rate, in which schools in the 85295 zip code have a 7.37% positivity rate, and it's still growing. The problem lies in the new reality students are forced to face. I have personally had to take 4 classes online now. The online program at Higley is asynchronous, which means no live instruction is given to students. When students were remote learning, they at least had their teachers 2 to 3 times a week instructing them on what to study and how to study. In case you're wondering why the numbers were so high, Higley High School has become a breeding ground for coronavirus. I've now witnessed that many students will take off their masks during passing period, and no one walks on the right side of the hallway when entering or leaving. I've seen masks taken off for extended amounts of times in classes, or masks are just under the nose, and it just keeps happening. And students do congregate every single time in the passing period in the courtyard. I'm almost done. The problem lies with the impatience. Mr. Glover, the only member who voted no in reopening, mentioned that we do not want our school to be the next J.O. Combs. The board also agreed that we do not want to reopen just to have to close again. As of today, November 18th, it seems the things you feared most on August 26th when you made the decision to reopen is now a harsh reality. It is now winter, and all of us can confidently say we are getting colds more often, sneezing and coughing, and allergies are all over the place. More students are absent, and we are in effect in a second wave, which will be much, much more dangerous than the first without proper precautions such as going online. I leave you with this. I send this message asking you to do everything in your power to allow all students at any Higley campus a proper and safe education. I call on you now more than I did after the board meeting on August 26th to not only allow Higley students to have a proper education, but to protect the lives of every single member of this community before it's too late. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I know it's not easy to get up in front of us, and I appreciate your time tonight, Giuliano. Next up, I have Stacy Abarilla or Abaria? Abarilla. Thank you.
So my name is Stacy Abarilla. I am a parent in the district. I have 3 kids in the district at 2 different schools. I also have nieces and nephews in the district. My sister used to teach in the district and doesn't any longer. Before I make my comments, I want to commend you for showing up as a student. I know that probably what you just said is going to be very unpopular on your campus, and you're really courageous for speaking to your elected officials, and I just wanted to congratulate and commend you for doing that, because I think civic engagement is really important, and especially important for our young people. So kudos. I also want to thank Dr. Foley for the update you gave. I was actually a bit concerned in preparing for my comments today that I didn't see a specific item about a COVID update on the agenda, but I'm glad to see you did provide an update, and I appreciate your comments also, Mr. Glover. I came here to talk about COVID, but there's another topic that's easier to talk about that I noticed on the agenda, so I'm going to make comments about that first, and then I'll move to the harder thing. Agenda item 7.4 has to do with the course guides that are getting reviewed. And I currently have a 7th grader who's a double advanced student at Cooley, and these course updates are too late for her, and I had a hard time getting her academic needs met with respect to her science class. It, after 6 months, finally got resolved, and I won't go over the details with you now, but I just really want to encourage you to make sure that the double advanced track gets updated at Cooley. I don't even know what I'm going to do with my kids next year because I just found out a couple of weeks ago that my daughter, who's a 7th grader in algebra, won't have a math class available to her on campus at Cooley. She has to go to Williamsfield. This was news to me. Nobody bothered to tell me that when I was registering my kids for school in the spring. I also have a 6th grader who will be a 7th grader and will be double advanced. And apparently the courses will be there for her next year. So does that mean I'm going to have 2 middle schoolers at 2 different schools? Or it was very challenging for my kid, and I don't think that should be the case. So I'll leave it at that and just let you know that I had problems for my daughter, and I want to make sure that those are resolved for kids who come after her. My comments regarding COVID, again, thank you, Dr. Foley, for giving your update. I went to the dashboard today, and just at the outset, I'm not here to advocate closing schools or keeping them open or anything. What I want to say, though, is that our case rate is going up. And I went back and looked on the public health website, the county website, for our case rate in Higley, and it's gone up 128% within our boundaries in the last few weeks. That's significant. Thankfully, it seems as though the positivity rate on campus is relatively well controlled, which is great. Trouble is, some parents are sending their kids, as Dr. Foley mentioned, to school knowingly sending their kids to school, knowing they've either had a positive test, but apparently if they have no symptoms, then the rules don't apply to them, or they think maybe their kid has it, they have a few symptoms, and they go and get a test, and they send them to school while they're waiting for the results. Upwards of 80% of the cases in the kids that have been in the district are from families whose parents frankly lied and hid that information from the school district. And you know, we all want our kids to be in school. We all want them to have a safe environment, and nobody wants to have their kid isolate or quarantine or be out of school for 2 weeks. I certainly do not want my children to have to be out of school for 2 weeks because some other parent sent their kid to school with COVID and exposed my kid, and now my kid has to miss school. So I'm here to implore you to find a way, a mechanism to hold those parents accountable. We all signed an agreement when we sent our kids back to school. I understand my child must be free of COVID symptoms, cannot return to school until 10 days have passed, symptoms have to be resolved, no fever for 24 hours. I will immediately notify the school site if I become aware that my child, etc. All of the parents had to have signed that. And they're not following through, and our district healthcare staff is having to be private detectives and having to chase after families who think the rules don't apply to them. Guess what? I don't agree with every rule, but there's a mechanism, a right way to tell you, like I'm doing now, what I think should be the rule or the case, and you make that decision in the best way that you can with the information you have available. But just because I don't agree with a rule doesn't mean I shouldn't follow it. And I want you to know that your health staff is struggling with chasing after these cases, and to find a way that if a parent sends their kid to school knowingly, then there needs to be repercussions for that.
Thank you so much for sharing. Appreciate it. Dr. Foley, can we follow up with her on her student schedules, please? Thank you so much.
President Kaler, was there anybody else?
That's it for tonight.
Okay. Could I just say to these two who spoke, there's I find two really unsatisfying things being on a school board. And one is open meeting law and not really being able to talk to more than one person on any votable item. So I really have no idea sometimes what these guys are thinking. That's really hard. And then not being able to really respond to comments from the public. I wish that we could. So I do thank you for coming in I support the First Amendment fully. I wish there was a better way we could exchange, and thank you for coming in and sharing. Whether I agree or not, I think it's important to speak up. So thank you for coming in and participating.
I agree with you, Mr. Glover. It's not easy to come up here and speak to us, and so I commend you both. Thank you for coming in tonight. And with that, we are going to move on to our consent agenda items. I move that we approve consent agenda items 6.1 to 6.9.
Second.
Any questions or comments on consent? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. I guess just a real quick comment. I know that we are getting our booster clubs and PTOs trained from Mrs. Malloy, and I've heard just positive feedback from that. And so please send my regards to Mrs. Malloy that she's done an amazing job in that role. Thank you. Okay, we have some information items, and this is going to be from Mr. Gadd. 8.1, we have, I'm sorry, 7.1, we have our governing board monthly financial report. Any questions or comments for Mr. Gadd on that? Then we are going to quickly move on to 7.2, and this will be a presentation for our early projections of our 2021-22 M&O budget. Mr. Gadd, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. The slide that you see on the screen is what I will cover with you. It's this step is in accordance with the budget calendar that you viewed at the last governing board meeting. It is a projection of next year's M&O budget, and as I'm sure the board's aware, that is the largest budget and contains primarily all of the staff and benefits district-wide. We start out with this revenue control limit. That's the first line. It's a formula-based calculation utilizing an estimated ADM for next year, average daily membership, as of the 100th day, so that will be roughly February of next year. We've assumed, for purposes of this projection, that the ADM is flat. We have no decrease, we have no increase, because we don't know, especially with the online component, we don't know how that's all going to come out with the count. So I think that's a safe way to predict that. It also includes a 1% inflation, so it's assumed that I think the last year or so it's been about 1.6. This is a reduced number from that, primarily because of the economy and how it's been affected by the COVID environment. And so that is a projection of the new money for next year from the formula. It's about $300,000, so it's not nearly enough to deal with probably what we want to do. The second one is the board's aware, we're transferring annually $6 million from M&O to capital outlay. It's primarily paying for lease of construction for 2 schools. That amount is 4.4 of the $6 million. We are listing here a continuation of that, and the reason we're doing that is we need to review with the board in the next couple of board meetings the capital budget and whether you want to do some things there that are different than what we have now. But if you don't want to make any changes, it's here and it's planned to continue as it has in the past. The district completed last year with a very high budget balance carry forward. Much of that is due to payroll positions that we were unable to fill for some period of time. All of those kinds of things generate balance. They're budgeted for the full year, but we only spend a portion of that total. We wound up the year with about about $8 million of budget balance carry forward. That seems to me to be excessive, given the base that we are coming from. So that's this $3 million is an effort to reduce that balance. It tightens up the difference between budget and expenditures for 21-22. So what we are doing here is we're taking that difference, that slack that's in the budget, and actually assigning it to some purpose the board will identify. A continuation of Prop 123 is a part of the total M&O general budget limit. That is state trust land money. You may remember that was the governor established that. The legislature passed it. It's a 10-year commitment. It ends in 25. So it's one of those, like Prop 301, it just sunsets, it stops. So as we get closer to 25, I'm sure that there'll be some efforts to figure out, just as there was with Prop 301, what to do with that termination. So we are including a budget balance carry forward of about 4% rather than the higher level that I talked about earlier. So we have a $3.7 million reserve for that. The M&O override, roughly the 15% is calculated at slightly over $12 million. The $1.6 million that you see on the last line is, we think, is a reasonable reduction of that capital, that M&O transfer that you see up on line 2. We would basically use that money as a transfer back to M&O, retain it in M&O. The capital transfer then would be reduced to 4.4, which is the value of those annual lease payments. And the rest we would make up through other sources of revenue. We feel comfortable that we can reduce that transfer at least by the $1.6 million. You'll notice in footnote number 4 on this slide, COVID will be one of the topics that we talk about at the next board meeting. COVID is a very large grant amount that each district receives, and in our case, it's well above $5 million annually. And it's a one-time, though, a one-time payment to compensate for expenditures that the district made from its budget to deal with COVID. That, then we need to project how we're going to spend that. It's a reimbursement. We've already paid it. So then when this reimbursement comes back and it's a one-time only, what's the best assignment of that money? And that's where we'll get into that discussion with you at the next meeting regarding capital outlay. So,
Mr. Gadd, can I stop you there? Did you say it's a $5 million one-time payment?
It's plus $5 million at this point. That is the application amount, and we feel comfortable. A big portion of it is what's called an enrollment stabilization fund. It's from the governor's office. They have over $300 million to assign. It's calculated on a per-student basis at this point of $500 a student, and we assume the distribution then will be using that as the formula. And if you calculate that into our student count, you're in that $5 million plus neighborhood.
And that's different than the CARES money.
That's correct.
Wow. Okay, thank you I had not heard of that at all, so thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Quite welcome. We're to be notified next week of the exact dollar amount from the governor's office for that stabilization.
So do I have to take my words back?
What's that?
Do I have to take my words back now?
No, I don't. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it
Thank
yet.
you for the money, Dr.
Maybe too early.
Doug
Maybe too
Ducey.
early. So if
Dr.
you...
Foley, would you let us know what that amount, when that comes in?
Yes.
What that amount is?
We will.
Thank you, and the
We will.
superintendent.
And hopefully before Thanksgiving recess, then we'll know the first 3 days of next week. And as soon as we do, we'll let you know.
President Kaler, members of the board, the final amount has not been finalized. Thus, this is why once we have that figure, we'll know. He's giving you estimates to know what the figures might be, but we'll have a final number, and it's one-time money, hence why we brought that calendar to kind of show we have some unique things happening this year and we need to make some decisions because sometimes it's one-time money and then there may be long-term commitments, but we have some money to do those things and to make some decisions. So hence it's important to kind of bit by bit, piece by piece, and again, we can get those final numbers so that you have that number in your head too.
I will tell you what I know about CARES. It approximates $600,000. It is not finalized. But that's the neighborhood that should be in, and of course then it leaves that very large amount. That's that stabilization fund that's going to contribute the lion's share of that COVID effort. So there are two pieces there, and we'll probably know at the next board meeting, if not earlier, what the dollar amounts are in each one. Well, if you follow that down through then the scenario of how we've assigned some funds and how we've calculated the new money in next year's budget, this is a pretty conservative view, I believe, of what we would have as additional money for next year. We've been very careful about putting on this sheet only those things that appear fairly obvious. And it totals a difference of $5.1 million from our current $90 million M&O budget. That's an approximate 5.6% increase. That $5 million as it relates to the $90 million that's budgeted in your first column here for the current year. So if all of this comes true, and we have no reason to believe that it won't, because as I say, it's a conservative estimate, the district would be able to study then over the next several board meetings, as we talked about in the budget calendar, how the uses, the assignment of that money. And so that will be forthcoming, some at the December meeting and some also at the January meeting. So if you have any questions, I will try to answer them for you.
Very good. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate your time. Next up is we are going to have a high school media center update from Dr. Fowler. Good evening.
President Kaler, members of the board. Tonight I'm going to present updates on the media center remodels at Waynesfield and Higley High. And would you advance that slide for me, please? First, we see the picture from Higley High School. In this first picture, it's outside the media center, and it shows the new sign and the advertising for students there in the courtyard, for the cafe portion of the media center. And that second picture gives you kind of your first look when you come into the Market Cafe over at Higley High. You can see the video menu boards and the view that students or staff see when they enter the cafe. Just to talk about those items you may not, if your eyesight's like mine, you probably can't read that specifically. So there's coffee items that are available: latte, espresso, hot cocoa, chai, tea, lemonade. There's also drinks like water, just regular cold tea, energy drinks, and then slushes, I believe. And then on the salty side, which I don't think that shows up there, but there's also salty snacks like chips and Chex Mix, sunflower seeds. There's frozen yogurt available, and then also some sweet treats, Pop-Tarts, cookies, cereal bars, and the like. Can you advance to the next slide, please? Here's a wider angle view of the Market Cafe showing the variety of items that I just referenced, and then the staff are available for staff and students. The next slide, please. This is the multi-purpose room or presentation room. That's the view from kind of the back corner, looking back. And one of the things that you'll notice the upgraded seating there. One of the nice things about this area, is it's tiered seating. Although the floor is one level, the way that the seating in there, it kind of creates almost that presentation area view. So, and it's ideal for professional development and other presentations. Next slide, please. In this picture, the first one, you'll see student tables for studying and for small groups and small group work. And that's in front of the media center, kind of in the transition area between the cafe and the multipurpose room. And then also in that picture, you see the esports rooms. Unfortunately, the equipment, that's the last piece that we're waiting on there. But the first area is for what we call console gaming. You have an Xbox or one of those games that students would use there. And then the second space you can't see as well, but that's there's actually 12 stations there for where the esport computers will go. And those esport computers, as I've indicated in the past, we're just waiting for the vendor to install those, which should be happening early next week, and they'll be available for students to use. Next slide, please.
Wait, can we go back? Dr. Fowler, I know I kind of talked with Mr. Lotzenheiser about this, but what is going to be the security on these two rooms? What is that going to look like? Because obviously they can't just stay open, correct?
I think the security concern is a little different at Higley than it is at Waynesfield. And so because of the location and the door location at Waynesfield, and we'll get to that slide, so we have some additional plans there. I'm not sure that we're as concerned here, but the vicinity of the esports lab and the exit door. So can I hold that question and come back and answer that at Williamsfield? The next slide, please. And this is just the view, another view of the state-of-the-art furniture and the seating. It includes serpentine bookshelves. All this furniture is movable, including the bookshelves, which makes this space very flexible for multiple school events. Next slide, please. And then this is another view kind of from the other side, looking at that furniture and the bookshelves that's containing all those media materials provided for students. Next slide is kind of a longer view from the back, and seeing also by the window some of that open high top seating that looks out into the grassy amphitheater. Also the restaurant style seating or booths that are adjacent to the cafe and close for there for students for their collaboration, and really creating an inviting area for students to connect. Next slide. And this is the back area, our back window. Right now is, and I'm sorry the picture, I'm not the world's greatest photographer, but that middle picture is where the media center director is seated at this time, and that on either side there's the high top tables for students to use. There is an upcoming project that my very capable support service team is going to engage in, and that middle window that you see right there, we're going to actually add double doors to allow students to come in and out of that space. And certainly when that occurs, then we'll adjust the media center person's station there. So that's Higley High space. I guess specifically for Higley High, if there's any questions about Higley High space, I could answer those right now.
President Kaler. This obviously pertains to both. As we've had conversations, the seating is extremely close. What and how are we managing people in this enclosed area regarding COVID and trying to keep some distancing? It's closer than you can go to restaurants, and so, I mean, are we trying to space that out? Is it, I know it's helpful to space people because of our cafeteria and our outside eating places, but we've added additional lunch periods so that we can try and space them out. But this is cozy, and it's uncomfortable for me right now. It's great, but it's cozy, and this was kind of one of my concerns because we started this in the middle of COVID, and it was one of my concerns then. It is a cozy space, and I am concerned on how close people are.
President Kaler, Board Member Reese, my understanding is that the media center director is in this space the entire time, as well as staff specifically in the cafe. And the expectation for students related to masks is certainly in place, unless of course they're eating. And so I know that they're utilizing that space very similar to they are elsewhere on campus. I know that when I was in there the last few times, there's multiple staff, because also in this space, there's collaboration areas where the career counseling area is as well. So at any given time, there's probably at least 3 staff members, and in some cases more. But that will be, again, the staff that use that to encourage students to remember to practice physical distancing and to make sure they wear their masks, just like they're doing everywhere else on campus. I will also defer to Mr. Lautenheiser if he has anything else to add, because I know he's working closely with the principals on the management side of those areas. If I missed anything, Mr. Lautenheiser.
President Kaler, Board Member Reese, yes, we've had discussions about that, monitoring and managing, very similar to what we're doing in our cafeterias right now. And so there is staff assigned there when it is open for them to go and make sure they're spread out. I was at the Williamsfield one today during and right after lunch, and they were making sure that people were spread out. And when you go in there, and what's kind of nice right now is because of the number of students that are spread out, these At least it wasn't today. It wasn't overcrowded when I was over there on campus.
And it's my understanding Higley's is open all day long versus Williams Fields has specified times.
Yes,
So,
Board Member Kaler, President Kaler, Board Member Reese, yes, that, Vice President Reese, that is true right now. Just with, in terms of the rollout, Higley's Cafe has actually been operating a little bit longer, and they're more comfortable in terms of the space, in terms of where it's located. The location, and so it does open a little bit before school and stays open throughout the day. At Waynesfield, however, because of the location, there's some just challenges with that. And so right now, they've limited it to before school, during the lunch hour periods. Now remember, there's 3 lunch periods now, and then for a short time after school, and that's a campus decision at this point at Waynesfield. And so I know that they'll have conversations and kind of make adjustments as needed, but that's how Waynesfield has rolled it out. And they're newer to opening their space than Higley, just because of the way that some of the equipment was delivered and how those things opened up.
and what does the staff member, I know we're not into Williamsfield, we're getting ready to get into the Williamsfield, but what does that staff member do all day when it's not open?
When I talk about being open, I mean the cafe. I'm referring to the cafe being open.
Right. My understanding is that our food provider was providing that person. So is that person only there 3 times, or are they there all day long for the cafe?
You know what? I'd have to check on that.
Okay.
President Kaler, Vice President Reese. But I do know that certainly the media person is there, and they're still using the media space throughout the day. It's just that cafe portion is only open at those times, and I don't know how Chartwell staffs that space. So that would be a decision or a question that I'd have to ask and then follow up with you on.
Thank you.
Yes, I have one quick question, and I know, again, I'm kind of nitpicking on the door thing, but so the staff room door, there's not a door. Is that correct? Are we going to work on getting a door so that there can still be a staff meeting going on while the rest of the meeting center is open?
Yes, in the
'Cause right now
collaboration
it's
space,
very-
there's two kind of areas. The first area, it's open by the front, and the back area, there is actually a door at the back. And so in the design, not to digress too much, but if you recall, when we looked at the project, there was some cost challenges, I guess I would say, and so we had some value engineering to this project to keep the total construction at $1 million. And so, like the windows that are going to turn into doors at the back, the door to the PD room is also a project that my very capable support services team is going to
take care of that. Great,
house
'cause
too.
I
Sorry,
don't
and
want
I'm
it to
sorry.
be-
I think I
Yeah.
had it in my notes, but I
Thank you.
didn't mention that. Thank you.
Just a couple quick things. I really like the flooring. I think it's going to be a much better cleanup, I hope, than the carpet that we used to have in there. And then I just want to encourage you to keep those marketplaces the hub, because that's what I kind of saw when we voted on that. Like, that would be a hub and the kids would want to come there, and it's a big draw. So to keep those markets open as much as we can and still have the obvious school aspect. So I just want to encourage that. Thank you.
Thank you. Continuing on to the next slide, please. And you will hopefully recognize Waynesfield with, this is the outside of their Market Cafe, adjacent to the driveway that leads to the back of the campus and the student parking lot. I'm showing a similar sign. Then on the next slide here's the wide angle view of the Waynesfield Market Cafe, and you can see it's very similar in design to the one at Higley. Next slide, please. Their restaurant seating and tables adjacent to the Market Cafe. You're kind of showing you both because that space, it kind of distorted the picture. And there's also high top seating on the back and on the sides. Included there is computer search stations along the back wall. The back wall. Next slide, please. And there's just another sample of the furniture that's in the middle next to the presentation wall. Those are some of the new furniture and spaces created to to allow students to collaborate and work together. Also, you'll see along the windows there, they have some additional high-top seating, and there's also some built-in seating next to that. You'll see the next slide, please. You'll see that's a little bit better picture because Higley's is similar, but that's the esports area. And this is the space, President Kaler, that we were referencing earlier. Because the door, an exit door to the media center is very close to there, this is another area where we're going to add some doors to this space just to help with the security. We do know that the interest in those esports computers is going to be fairly high, so we want to make sure that the security of those will be kept in place, and so we're going to add that component there. And as you'll see, the video wall there is a very large TV that's going to be help us in multiple ways. Could be used for presentations, but also one of the selling features for this space is esports was really a team on both campuses that didn't really have a venue, and now this really allows for a venue to take place, and that big screen will have the ability to split screens, and you can watch up to 4 screens happening at the same time. And I know that with the seating there and in that space will be a popular gathering place for students, appropriately masked and distanced in that area till as that process continues.
Dr. Fowler, I know that, like, to Mrs. Reese's concern, there's X's on cafeteria chairs, and I don't know if we have to go that far, but if that's what we need to do, we could do that, perhaps.
Yes. The next slide, please. Again, just another view of that window, and then you actually can see the built-in bench along that window, and then just some more design of that updated furniture. And then you'll see there's a couple adjacent collaboration spaces there with chairs for students to work, and then screens where they can project their work on those screens and work collaboratively there. Next slide, please. In this picture, you'll see again some of that flexible bookshelves that includes that and some modern updated seating there with the media center director's area. And then the next slide as well shows the same thing, and so they're working to maximize that space. And then finally, in the last slide, you'll see the large conference area, which again, this is of the things that I've talked about. This will be the last area where Mr. Buholson, our very skilled tradesman, will get in, and we're going to actually build a conference room there with walls and windows to be able to allow a separate space there for presentations and really enhance what can happen in that area. So we appreciate the board's support through this process, and COVID did make this event, much more challenging. But I look forward to touring this space at Waynesfield on Friday with a superintendent visit, and just again, I know the students are very excited, and principals are excited to finally have access to this space. So I'll answer any other questions.
I think some of the staff loves a latte too in the morning, is what I've heard. So there's that. Mr. Glover.
Dr. Fowler, it looks nice. Congratulations. I am going to go see Williamsfield later this week, but I was hoping maybe before I become a civilian that I could also see Higley Highs maybe after hours. I don't like to add another mouth breathing amongst everybody, but I would love to do that. I remember distinctly when I first joined the board, it was one of the very first things that I talked to Dr. Thomason about was making these a more lively, engaging space, and I thought it was a real long shot, so I'm very pleased it's come to fruition. You must be very relieved it's almost at the very end of this big project, but I'm very proud that we've converted this space. I think the community and the students will really like it and thrive.
President Kaler, Board Member Glover, yes, thank you for that. And some of the feedback that we've been getting just from other people that have used this space and have seen the space, that it has almost a college student union type feel, and really one that, and this is like a college campus, and wanted to draw kids in there. And we do feel that way too with the esports computers, and once those get in there, we do really feel like that's going to be a draw for students, and we'd much rather have a safe place for them to be be on campus. And so we're looking forward to seeing that to come to fruition. And we are hearing that the market cafes at both campuses are being utilized well by students and staff, which is a nice perk for sure. And so thank you for your support on that. And I am relieved to see this finally. I haven't, completely knocked on wood yet. Maybe I should a little bit. We're waiting for those computers, but we are close. And thank you to the board again for all of your support through this process.
Thank you, Dr. Fowler. Maybe they'll even read a book while they're in there, which would be amazing. At least read the cover. But I love the colors. I love how it just ties into the school campus, and it just really accentuates each of their own colors, and it's beautiful design. So again, thank you. And President Kaler, I'd be remiss to not thank both Principal Fields and Principal Tannenbaum, because they were very involved in especially the selection of colors and the furniture, and I really felt that space needed those principals' inputs, because that's the space that they were really going to use, and they knew their campus the best. And so I do think in this process that was the piece that kind of helped it all come together, and I really appreciate both of those gentlemen for their efforts and their patience with the process. They can come decorate my house next. Yes. They did a great job. Thank you. Any other comments from Dr. Fowler? Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Well, next up, we have Mr. Lotzenheiser is going to give us a update. I'm going to recommend that I make a motion to recommend that the board review the requested changes to the 2021-2022 course guides for middle school and high school, as well as the new course guide for HBA, and provide feedback.
Second.
Yes, you're on.
President Kaler, members of the board. Just waiting for the PowerPoint.
I guess, you know what, I didn't have to make a motion on this one because this is the first time we're seeing this, so it's coming back for a final.
I take my second.
Sorry.
We'll be returning on December 9th.
We are going to return. This is our first read per se, so my apologies.
So tonight I have the pleasure of presenting the process and the outcomes of the process for the course guides for the 2021-2022 school year. Next. So in the presentation, we're going to talk about the committees, and I need to give credit where credit is due. So we'll talk about who's the members of our committees. We'll talk to you about the process that we use to make the decisions about the courses that we're going to offer and or the revisions that we're going to do. We'll touch base on a few of the different changes within the high school course guide, a few within the middle school course guide, and then we put a very, very preliminary Higley Virtual Academy course guide in front of you. That is still very much a work in progress, but we wanted to show you that we are working toward the opening of the Higley Virtual Academy. So the course guide committees, and before I jump into that, this is a process that was started last year by Dr. Foley, and it's a really involved process that includes a lot of different voices when we look at that. And I want to say thank you to all of the people that are involved from both the high school, the middle school, and the district office perspective. If you'll notice the high school committees, we had our principals, we had our assistant principals of curriculums, and we had our head counselors. And then from the district perspective, we had our director of CTE, we had our instructional coaches, we had student support information systems, we had online, and then I need to give a huge shout out to Virginia Sanchez, our Ed Services assistant, who does such a wonderful job in preparing and presenting this information for us to make our decisions. From the middle school, once again, we had our principals, we had our assistant principal of curriculum and our lead counselors, as well as the same team from the district. And then with Higley Virtual Academy, Dr. Sue Borges is really helping us out as the Director of Achievement and Assessment. Not only overlooking the catalog, but she's also developing the student handbook that we'll be presenting to you later. And then Laura Collins, our online coordinator, has been helping put this together for us. So just to talk you through the process and the timeline, starting on September 21st, we did our call for course additions and revisions, went out to all teachers and administrators and coaches, with the expectation that by October 14th, they gave recommendations to us. We reviewed within Ed Services and used our coaches and directors to complete that by the 21st. And then we had our first course guide review meeting on October 27th. And what's really important about these meetings is we can get together and not just talk about courses we want to change, but if they have questions about processes or procedures with that are kind of outlined within the course guide, we could have those discussions. Sometimes we realize we're not going to change what happens in the course guide, but we do need to strengthen perhaps a process or a procedure behind it. For instance, we're having a testing out committee because of some questions that came from this group. So it kind of has led to other different pieces that we can firm up and make more consistent as we go along. And I think that's the great beauty in collaborating and seeing it from not just a district perspective, but from a site perspective about how we're trying to do our schedules. So on the 27th, we had our first course guide meeting. We did a bunch of recommendations. We put it together. Then we met again on November 9th and to fine-tooth comb it and go through it again. And once again, it's great to have another set of eyes that we looked at this and had to make decisions about, should we change things, should we not? It gave us time to go back and look at specific situations, once again, to determine, do we change what's in the book, or do we leave it there and then work on our processes on the other end? Tonight, we're presenting to you the rough drafts, and then asking, we'll come back on the 9th after your feedback for final approval. The reason why we've got to get it done in December is because we hit the ground running in January with registration. We need to have this out for people to be able to view and to help them make decisions as they register for courses in January. Next slide, please. So just the thought process that goes through when we take a look at how do we consider, should we add a new course or not? Because it's not just as easy as writing up something and then giving to it and say, put it in the course catalog, let's see what sticks. So the first thing we looked at is, how does it fit in our current offerings? Where does it fit? And so, for instance, we take a look and say, is this adding to something that we're doing, or is this going to competing with something else that we're doing? And those are the discussions we have within members from both schools talking about it. The second one's kind of big. Is this teacher-dependent or a program-dependent course? Meaning, is the course sustainable? Sometimes we have very, very passionate teachers who have an idea about a course, and it's a great course, and we put it in, and then after a year they leave. And we don't have anyone to take their place. And now we're struggling, and we might have put something forth for kids that we really think is a great option that now we're going to have to pull back off the table. And that has to be a consideration when you look at it. What is the sustainability of adding a course? Because we don't want to have people as freshmen not really have the opportunities to see those things to completion as a senior. Then we look at the proposal itself and say, is this comprehensive? Do we have enough information on what they're providing us? Where does the curriculum alignment? And that's where we use our coaches to be able to look at it and say, how does this curriculum align to the standards, and does it fit and meet the needs of what our students are, and do we have enough information? And then finally, as with most things, we have to say, are there costs associated with this? Are they appropriate? Are they manageable to be able to add the new course? When we look at revisions, we look and say, are we looking at content, what's written, or are we looking at process? And so, like I've referenced earlier, sometimes we don't change what's written, but we change how we do it on the back end. And those are great discussions for us to have. What's the big picture of this impact? What's the implication? You try to look for hidden implications. And I'll give an example at the high school level. Electives, there's competition for electives, okay? Because kids, you have the same group of kids going and they all choose different electives. The core classes, they got to take them. But with electives, they have to choose. So sometimes when you look and add electives, are you thinning the opportunity? So am I giving to one program while taking from another? And so those are some of those hidden implications that you have to look at and try to understand when we look at what the revision is. We want to know why it's necessary, what's the driving force, and is the revision going to be consistent with what we've continued to do? And as long as it's consistent, meets these parameters, then we go ahead and make the revision. So if you look for our high school courses, I've just outlined a few of them that are jumping up. Actually, we're only looking at adding 2 new courses this year. The first course is in Advanced Topics in Criminal Justice. This is a continuation of a program. This is the 3rd year CTE program. There is high demand, and we feel like that we will be able to sustain this, as well as provide an opportunity for the students who have already finished that 2nd year course. And so this is in our CTE program. Funding is available for it. We have the teaching staff available for it, and we think it is very viable. The second new course is we already offer Earth Science. We're adding Honors Earth Science. And so we have staff on both campuses are able to fill it. And we look for, an additional option for students who are seeking a weighted course and are seeking, and this can be a dual credit option with the teachers who are dual credit as well. And so once again, it's adding to the science program, but we don't think that it's going to be in direct competition, that it's simply another option for kids as they're looking with the science program.
We, last year, maybe 2 years ago, we got to tour, I believe, Higley High and got to see the criminal justice program and how they were doing, like, was it last year? Okay, I'm like, I can't remember. The years all merge. And it was just very exciting to see how excited those kids were. And to add on another course is really exciting because I do know they have that room. If those who toured, they had a separate room that they got to investigate. And it was just such a cool experience for them. So I'm excited to see that we get to add to that. So thank you.
All right, thank you. When we talk about revisions, I just threw a couple of examples. I know that you've gotten a more complete list, that if you want to go very specific, because sometimes it's literally changing one word or we had something misspelled. I know that happens sometimes. So we try to catch all of that. But our Air Force Junior ROTC just updated what they wanted within their descriptions. When we went through, they wanted to be more specific. So when kids came in, they knew what the expectations. So those were small little changes that happened within a description. I think the biggest revision we have on the high school side is in our vernacular, the Blend 1, Blend 2, and Blend 3 courses. I don't think we're going to change calling them that, but for the NCAA clearinghouse, they need them not to include the word blend. And so what happens is the title of the course is what happens on the transcript. And so we need to change the title of the course to make sure that the transcript fits the credits that they're getting. So blend, instead of calling it Blend 2, on the transcripts they would now say AP United States History and AP Language and Composition. And so we made that change. Internally, we'll still call them Blend 1, Blend 2, and Blend 3. But in the course book and on their transcript, it's going to say that, especially to help with NCAA clearinghouse, as for any of our athletes that are taking that, so they won't have a question about that course. And then another revision, we no longer use Edgenuity, and so we've taken those courses out of it, so those won't be available for people to see. Fees. I know everyone loves to talk about money, so fees is we have new fees and we have revised fees. And so people bring them forward, and then we talk about the need and are we being consistent with what we're offering for all of our courses. Obviously, our new Advanced Topics in Criminal Justice course, it's brand new. We need to have a fee associated with it. The $50 per year is very much the consistent fee that we charge. Additionally, it was brought forth that our intermediate acting, concert orchestra, and sports med, the lab class, did not have fees assigned. However, there was a need for fees for supplies, and so we want to add that in. Those levels, once again, are consistent with all the other levels within the performing arts and or within sports medicine. We were revising the fees. Chamber choir and jazz band had been at $25 per year. We're moving them to be consistent with all of the rest of the fine arts courses, once again, because there was a need, because of the supplies that we're going to have to, and especially with those, I want to say songs, but that's not the right term. I'll think about it as soon as I leave. But the chamber choir and the music, right? Purchasing the music and making sure that we have the appropriate things for that. I think the biggest one that we had the most discussion on was the instrument rental. Okay, and really what's happening is, I will say that the Higley Unified School District is doing an outstanding job of providing opportunities for instruments for our kids who want to play at a very reduced cost. We are charging $75 per year, where for some instruments it's $60 per month if I'm going outside, where we're doing $75 per year. With the low cost, however, comes an issue that it's hard for us to pay for the reconditioning of them, and this is a concern that we definitely have. And so what we're asking tonight is that we raise the fee from $75 a year to $100 per year to help increase the reconditioning and help us recoup some of the cost of reconditioning those instruments. There's a big, broader plan that we have at looking at replacing our instruments and how we're getting those fixed. This is a small step within it. And, I was given information that really, even to get an instrument assessed right now, it's $150 just to get it assessed. And then when you see where the issues lie, they just starts tagging on more and more money to it. We've been paying for it out of different accounts that we have right now, but we just need a little bit of help, and we felt like that. We're asking for an additional $25 per year to do that. When we did the math, and if you were running it from an outside source, once again, it's $60 for the 8 months. You're looking at about $480 as opposed to the $100 per year.
Mr. Lotzenheiser, if I may, I should have given you a heads up on this question, but as I reflect and think about people maybe being out of work and things like that, can you just talk so we all hear? I would hate to see a student not pursue their interest in music or whatever because of money. So what happens if, what would a parent do if they were having some financial trouble? Could you just tell?
Yes, and this would not just go for instruments, but go to any kind of fee that they have. The first thing I think would be to talk to the instructor and let them know, please confidentially, this is not something that we're going to share. And administrators have ways that we can cover these fees. And so I would ask that they go toward the teacher, and then the teacher go with the administrator, and we can figure out. We don't ever want to exclude anyone from any opportunity they have because of financial, especially difficulties right now. So hopefully that clarified, Mr. Glover.
Can I just tag on to that? And because people will be selecting these courses in January, where they don't have a teacher to talk to about the fees. And what Mr. Glover was saying, if they're going through the course guide and they're like, you can't take that class, we're not going to sign up for it because it has a $50 fee, we can't afford it. If they're currently at the high school, have them contact their counselor and have that discussion.
The counselor or the principal.
Yes.
And the principal's office, because
So if they're not in the class and they want to sign up, but they're concerned about being able to pay for that future.
Yes.
To either talk to their counselor or the principal, or that, like Mr. Glover said, don't not choose a course because it has a fee associated with it, that we can, if there is a need, we can help.
Yeah, if there's a need, we'll find a way. Okay. So when we look at middle school and the revisions, once again, I need to go back to the last couple of years. There was so much work that was done in this process last year that our revisions are kind of small this year. But what I want to do is highlight for us, we're adding new courses, Mandarin 1A and Mandarin 1B at Cooley Middle School. It's helping with the continuation of the Mandarin immersion program, as well as allowing the 1A and 1B, if it's very similar to the Spanish 1A and 1B, where they take Mandarin 1 spread out over 2 years. As long as they get a C or above in both of those classes, they're actually able to earn high school credit. And so it can be a continuation of the immersion program or a starting point for people who are interested in learning Mandarin. And so that's going to be added for us at Cooley Middle School. Another
Can I ask just a quick question on that? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Is that, no offense here, is that course, Mandarin A, really going to be an appropriate place for someone who's spent 6 years in an immersion program?
I've already offered Mandarin 1 and then Mandarin 2. This is actually another option in case they were struggling at that they can drop down and go a little bit slower. But already within the course guide that was approved for last year is Mandarin 1 and Mandarin 2.
Okay.
So it's an
I just wanted to make sure with the continuation of the Mandarin immersion, I was like, wait, that's usually a slower pace. Some of these kids could probably teach that if they've spent the last 6 years in an immersion program. So thank you for clarifying.
Yes,
Okay.
President Kaler, Vice President Reese, one of the things that we're using is the STAMP language assessment that gives us a proficiency target for each kid that we're using in our Mandarin program to make sure we're staying on track with those standards and making sure that we're at the right level and we the best fit for our language acquisition. So the great news is we have a nice tool that helps us make sure we're proficiency and on target in the target language.
Quick question follow-up to that. Is that test, are you able to then place the student in either Mandarin 1 or Mandarin 2? Does that kind of place them?
It's
or
a
middle school?
proficiency test. Basically what it is it tells us the level of language and proficiency. There's a beautiful chart for every one of the languages that allows us to identify where you are in your language acquisition. So it allows us to do a couple things. In a Mandarin program, it would allow you to ensure that we were mastering the standards at the level that we had aligned it to, or two, if it was the best fit for you for placement. So it confirms placement for recommendation. And then also confirms proficiency for credit bearing. So it's a great tool for instruction and for confirmation, and it's used in our seal of biliteracy, which we had in place but refined our processes for that you have to have to prove proficiency for that seal.
Thank you.
One of the revisions, and a big revision that we're doing right now, is with the ELAS, Humanities 7 and Humanities 8. Traditionally, these were only taught at Sussman. Now we are adding Cooley starting in the 7th grade year. And what we did is we changed the verbiage in there to make sure that parents know for that. This ELAS class is a block class, so this is 2 periods. There are 2 teachers in there, but this is the combination of the English language arts and social studies. So when you have the ELAS Humanities, you will also have the Advanced Social Studies 7 course. We have traditionally not had it at Cooley Middle School, as this was kind of the path that was taken for the HPAL students coming out of Bridges. However, with the increase of our GATE program at the elementary schools, there's definitely a need for it to be at Cooley. And so we are starting with the 7th grade and having those courses. So then the next year, when I come to you, I'll be saying that we're adding the 8th grade course to accommodate those students. And so right now we are working on the process for students to get into these. Once again, it goes back to those programmatic things. What is our testing in, and what are we looking at to make sure that we have a best fit for our students to be able to take these courses? Because we already have some advanced courses, but this is a little bit more advanced, and we want to give those parents the opportunities to apply for this program. And then there will be a process that we will work on consistent at both schools for making sure that kids are placed appropriately in the courses.
I just want to jump in and say thank you again for that whole process and making sure that our north and our south schools are equitable. But also, when looking at these, it's not even just our 6th graders moving up to 7th and 8th, but like from the 6th grade all the way through the high school, to have that plan and to make sure that they know what if you take these classes in 7th and 8th, this is going to be kind of your plan for 9th, 10th, and 11th, and 12th. And so just making sure that we are doing that full communication. I do apologize that we have, an honors geometry kiddo probably still going to Williamsfield. That's been happening over at Cooley now for a few years. But I look forward to when we have a full class of those geometry students over at Cooley. And it's going to happen. It's just going to take a little bit of time as we navigate through this new change. So thank you for doing it. I know it's just going to be our growing pain for right now. And I apologize to our sweet mama that was here. And so if we can just check in on her, that would be great. Thank you.
So you stole my thunder on the next one. So we're changing geometry.
Sorry.
That's okay. We're changing geometry to honors, geometry to match, because both campuses, yes, the ones from Cooley were going to Williamsfield, but the same content was being taught at Sossaman by a Sossaman teacher. And so we wanted to be consistent with both. And so when we looked at what they were doing within their courses, we changed geometry to be labeled honors geometry. So the HVA guide, and I know when you looked at it, it looked very rough, because it is very rough. And there's some highlights, there's lots of different things, there's courses, and really what we wanted to show you, this is very preliminary. We are looking at courses that we have the opportunity to offer through the Florida virtual curriculum as well. And for this course catalog, this course guide, it's going to be 7 through 12. And so we're looking at combining and how we look through that process. There's still so much work that we have to do on HVA throughout the year, including how we're going to staff it, and all of these different decisions that have to be made. But kind of our thought process is, we're going to tell you these are some of the courses that could be offered, and we would rather have them in a guide and up front, and then if we had to backtrack, instead of trying to add one at the end and say, oh, now we want to do this one. There are some different ones that are happening in there because of the HVA, the Florida virtual curriculum, and I know that some were pointed out, whether it was Latin or, I don't know if we're going to truly offer those, but I want us to give us that opportunity that if it arises and there is a need, that you have been able to see that these are one of the possibilities that we do have. So I'm going to continue to work on this. We'll continue to update you on this process, as well as the entire establishment of the Higley Virtual Academy, including the principal, who we're looking to move forward with a little sooner than later to help us lead through this process.
Thank you, Mr. Lotzenheiser. I have 2 things. One, I still think it needs to be a discussion that we come forward with, having that 8th grade honors geometry count towards a high school math credit. That's been a conversation we've had in the past, and I'm not sure if it's this year, next year, maybe before I retire, Mr. Glover. Because the other thing I would love to see before I retire as well is American Sign Language, and I've already had this discussion with Dr. Foley, but I want it to be heard across the district that is a priority for us eventually. It is on the table to be discussed and talked. COVID kind of put some things in our way this year, but we're hoping to add that as well. So good things to come for Higley. Any other comments or questions?
President Kaler?
Yes, Ms.
I just want, as we're continuing to look at our virtual academy, similar to the mom that was here, I have had conversations with Dr. Thomason about a virtual academy for several years now, that if we can look at some of our one-off students, and I say one-off students, but we have a lot of one-off students that I can tell you I had to seek out my own virtual classes for one of my students because it was either choose a class or a passion, and because the class was only offered, both of her passion and the class was only offered one class period. And so we were able to find a virtual high school that met our needs. I had to pay for it on my own, which was fine. I mean, it was the right thing for my student. But we have several of those students. And if we can keep that within our own district, I had to pay a California school, you know, to meet her need. And so, but I know she was not alone. It was many, many other students that we have that issue. So that is what's really, for me, as we look forward for these virtual academies, that we are able to handle those students who need just a one-off class, because maybe there's two classes that they need, but they're both only offered the same class period, which we run into often. So I know it's just a draft, but I definitely want that to be something in the back of our mind. The mom who got up and spoke, she's going to run into the same issue as her children progress through high school, that there's more of those advanced classes, and then they have a passion or an interest. And I don't think a student should have to choose taking a lower academic class to pursue a passion, and I don't think they should have to give a passion or an interest to pursue an appropriate level class for them. So and I know it's very rough right now, but let's just try and keep some of that in mind as we're determining these classes.
Okay, yes. And I think the idea with HVA is that it does incorporate with our sites so that we don't have people having to make a choice to go someplace else, and allow us some flexibility. It is so hard with those singleton courses when you get at the high schools and where to try to do them, and the principals and I are having lots of discussions about how can we think outside of the box about when we offer different things, and maybe changing some paradigms in terms of master scheduling that will allow us to fit the needs of as many kids as possible. Having written formerly written a master schedules at a high school, as fun as it is, it's a huge puzzle. It's a big spreadsheet, and I love spreadsheets. But ultimately, we have to get down and say, how can we meet the needs of the most kids? And it is hard when you have those singleton ones that come out.
But then it's great when we have this option behind it.
Thank you, and thank you for all the staff that put all the time into this, because I can see the work that was done. Especially, I read the the HVA Academy, the course guide. I read every page. It was enlightening one night. It was very fun.
This was kind of a big packet.
It was. It was enjoyable. I actually liked it. So I did read it, and I really enjoy it. And I just want to thank all the staff that put a lot of time and energy into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lotzenheiser. You did great for your first course guide, bringing it to us. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're doing our action items. So we've already had our work studies on the next three topics, which we greatly appreciate having those work studies when we have to come back for a vote. So with that, I move that the governing board approves the facility rental rate increases as presented.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Next up, we have
President Kaler, real quick on this one.
Oh, yes, you're going to
Because
go.
I'm not going to leave the room because we've had the presentation, but I am abstaining from the vote.
Thank you very much. So I move that the governing board approve the proposed preschool tuition rate increase for beginning with the 2021-2022 school year.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0.
And can I just say, Ms. Gleason, thank you
Oh, yes,
for
thank you for staying.
another evening. So 30 seconds, and you've been here an hour and a half. But I'm probably not going to get a chance to see you again, and you're one of my favorite people in all of Higley, so please take care.
Glover, you're killing us. Small. Okay. We don't have tears at board meetings. So now we're going on to 8.3. I move that the governing board approves the proposal from Orcutt Winslow to prepare a facility condition index study.
Second.
I think this is very timely, knowing that there is some extra funds coming our way and knowing exactly where they should go first. So any other comments with all that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Items for our future agenda. You can see what is still coming our way. We still have an athletic coming our way, an athletic handbook and eligibility. We have technology and some other items, but we're still trying to just swim our way through COVID along the same time. Anything else that the governing board would like to see come forward?
President Kaler?
Yes, Mrs. Reese.
Not anything new, but I just want to take a moment just real quick. While we're in the midst of COVID, people who have watched can see the work that you guys are still doing. Like, COVID's still going on, and we're still dealing with all the cases, and our nurse is handling a lot of that, and you guys are being pulled into all of that. You guys have been gracious and so appreciative of working with our community, meeting with our community, and not a short 10-minute phone call. These things are going long because people are very passionate, and there's a lot that they want to know. Course guide, that's a huge thing within a school district, and you guys are still getting that done. When you look at our future agenda items, we're still working on an athletic handbook, and that's coming to us. We have budgets we've got to do. And then you see that we still have some other things that don't have dates. They're important, and you guys have still prioritized them, and you're still working on it in the midst of COVID as well. So I just want people to recognize, and it's not just here in the district office, it's our schools, and our principals are being part of this, and they're trying to handle their students, and they're trying to handle their teachers and their staff that are concerned, and they're handling their community, and then they're having to come and sit on committees. And so, I mean, this year we are totally asking so much from everybody because COVID, but our district doesn't stop. All this other stuff doesn't stop. So I just wanted to take a moment to recognize that with these things that are coming up, and with tonight, our course guides. These are big things that you guys are doing that are very time consuming. So I appreciate it. As important to me as are things without dates right now, can stay things without dates right now because you guys have so much on your plate. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there. It's still on here, it's still important, but when we get to those is when we can get to those, because you guys are still doing so much work. So thank you.
President Kaler? Thank you. I appreciate those comments, Mrs. Reese. That's, you know, anytime we can simplify things, this is a year that we really, if we don't need to do it, we should pull back. And so I'm going to mention just a couple things. They're really not maybe on an agenda, but things maybe to think about. One, I really have been thinking a lot about the anxiety that some of our kids are feeling. I have seen them, you know, when kids are like coughing or sniffling, and sometimes I'll see them walking up to the office and they're crying, thinking they have COVID, when it's just really they're just allergic to grass. But like I've been thinking about like the lockdown drills, and I know there's probably a requirement, but maybe we could ask if there's a waiver this year that these kids, I just don't want these kids to be running around thinking that the whole world is always a terrible, horrible place. So maybe we could talk about that privately. And then Prop 208, I think we should start thinking about people and talking about where that dollars are going to go. You've got certified money, classified money, CTE money. It's not a rush, but we should start to think about it because it's a good thing. And when people actually have money to spend, that might actually make us feel a little better of things we can offer. And then lastly, maybe you could, before, I had some people ask about whether they should come here and make comments or if they could put them online and we could read them. Maybe that's a discussion you guys can have if we want to offer both for people. As we get more and more read, it might be, people might feel more comfortable just sending us in for board comments. I don't know. And then lastly, maybe a superintendent's report. I'm just wondering about Florida Virtual, if we're getting our money's worth for the people who are using it, not for the virtual academy, but for our in-person teachers, if they're using it. If you just fill us in, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. I was going to end the night with a very heartfelt thank you to everybody. It's Thanksgiving. I pray that everybody can go and be safe. I pray that you are with your families and that you share your thankfuls with those that you love. I love this place, and I know that's weird for a lot of people. My husband still wonders why, Amy, many times, but I'm thankful. I'm thankful for all the people and everybody that does so much to make Higley what it is today. So thank you. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we'll be back on December 2nd. With all that, I move that we adjourn.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Have a good evening.